Good morning, everyone. It's very nice to be here. I want to introduce Stacey Lauderdale-Litton. I don't know exactly where she is, Stacey. Oh, there you are. Okay. So Stacey was a postdoctoral fellow at the Douglas Developmental Disabilities Center over the past year, 2015 to 2016. Before coming to the DDDC, she spent 6 years as an elementary school teacher for children with autism in Los Angeles before attending graduate school at the University of California, Riverside, where she received her PhD in special education. Prior to her time at the DDDC, she was an assistant professor at Monmouth University for 4 years and coordinated the Masters in Education, Autism Track, and Applied Behavior Analysis programs focused on training future teachers and behaviorists to work with students with autism. While at the DDDC, Stacey worked to expand her knowledge of single-subject research design by focusing on skill development and behavior reduction procedures in the classroom setting. This experience at the DDDC allowed her to return to Monmouth University as the Special Education Department Chair with a research agenda more clearly focused on individual behavior change. Her research interests include student-teacher relationships, parent-teacher relationships, and the implementation of evidence-based practices for students with autism in the classroom. Stacey?
Good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to be here and to be able to tell you about my journey and how much your generosity has meant to me. I feel like in order to do that, I need to tell you a little bit about how I got here. So I started working with children with autism in 2002, and as all good life choices begin, mine began with quitting my job in finance, jumping in my car with my best friend, and driving across the country to Los Angeles because my parents were thrilled. And with no apparent direction, I knew that finance was not for me. But I didn't know what I wanted to do. My friend wanted to be an actor, and I'm nervous up here talking to you right now, so I knew that was not the direction I wanted to go, but I knew I wanted to do something more meaningful. There was a school for children with autism down the street from my apartment, and I applied for a job there as a paraprofessional. I had never worked with children with autism before. I had never met anyone with autism before. Parents, I'm sure you're really thrilled that I was given that opportunity, not having any experience. But luckily, it changed my life. I met amazing children that inspired me. Their families inspired me even more. And I knew that I wanted to dedicate my life to working with children and families of children with autism. So I went back to school at Cal State Northridge to get my teaching credential and my master's in special education. I continued to work for 6 years at this school. And after 6 years, I decided that I wanted to go and get my PhD. So I went to UCR, as Laura mentioned, and worked with Jan Blatcher to open a clinic to help families navigate the school system to make sure they were getting the appropriate services for their children, and also to help low-income families get a diagnosis for their children. I also focused on student-teacher and parent-teacher relationships, which I became interested in because of my work as a teacher. In 2011 is when I graduated, and it was also the year that I married my husband. And I was in California, living in San Diego, and he was living here, and I still don't know how he convinced me to move here instead of him moving to San Diego. With the weather right now, I'm still wondering how that happened. But he convinced me that this was the place to be. So I interviewed for some jobs, and I had a choice between a postdoctoral fellowship at Pittsburgh Children's Hospital, which was for 2 years, where I would not be living with my husband, or a faculty position at Monmouth University, where I would be living with my husband. And after some soul searching, I decided living with my husband was probably a good idea. And we had a son in 2012 and a daughter in 2013. And I spent the next couple of years trying to figure out how to navigate that work-life balance. I mean, let's be honest, I'm still trying to figure out how to do that. But I needed some refocusing. And in 2015, I spoke to my advisor from UCR, and she said, well, why don't you reach out to Sandy Harris and see what they're doing at Rutgers? And I said, well, okay, the worst that could happen is that nobody ever emails me back. But now knowing Sandy, and not only how brilliant she is, but also how kind she is and how willing she is to help other people, she did email me back. and she facilitated a conversation with Kate Fisk-Matthews in the back, and Kim Sloman, Bob LaRue, Laura, and they said, we'd really like you to come work with us, but we don't have any funding right now. And I said, okay, well, I'll write a grant. So I did, and I didn't get it. And I said, okay, well, there's still no funding. I'll write another grant. And I did, and I didn't get it. And so then Kate called me and said, Stacey, I have some really good news. And I said, what? And she said, there's funding. We found some funding for you. And as the professional that I am, I said, oh my gosh, I cannot believe this. I think I'm going to throw up. And luckily, Kate laughed and said, never mind, we'll give the funding to someone else. And I cried that day. I'm sorry. Because it meant so much to me. I'm so sorry. 50% of the time I was able to get through this without crying. As a mom, it was hard for me to get back on track, and I lost confidence in myself. And this opportunity gave that back to me. So thank you.
We have moments like this at GAZAP every day. Thank you so much for sharing your story.